Convos with Mortgage Peeps, presented by Learn to Lend. I'm Bobby Hanson, and today I'm so excited. We are conversating with Josh Gibson, Vice President of Client Experience and Success with MAXEX. And today's going to be really fun because Josh is one of my favorite people on the earth. He's someone that I've worked with. He's somebody that I admire. And I just think you're going to learn a lot and just really excited to get into it. So we worked together at a previous company. I've had the privilege of, being a part of his journey and him guiding me and helping me. And so just really excited to get into it today. He has always been someone I feel like who is always thinking about the bigger picture. So we're going to talk about technology and process, creating a better experience for everybody involved. So if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss anything, especially if you're newer to the industry. Let's go ahead and get into it. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Bobby.
How are you?
I am wonderful. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Obviously, we've talked about this for a while and finally made it happen. So really cool. What Bobby didn't mention is that we are also very close friends, just away from work. Our spouses know each other. We've watched each other's kids grow up. It's amazing to see Bobby continuing to grow your career and all the wonderful things that you're doing. So proud of you and just really cool to be along for the ride.
Oh, well, we could just go on and on, but I have to share your story with
Okay.
the world. But first, I do want to shout out and say Josh is one part of an amazing team. We're going to talk about Erin, his wife, who is going to come on the show. I'm going to put it out in the universe. So we'll go ahead and get into that. But we always start with the origin story. So, Josh, how the heck did you get into the mortgage business?
So probably good that you mentioned Aaron because I think I've been in the mortgage industry. I think this is my 20th or 21st year. I think Aaron's at 26 or 25, 26, 26, 27. Anyway, we've both been in the business a long time, but she was ahead of me in the industry. And so my first career was hospitality management. And so I was working in sales for REITs that were developing mortgage companies, hotel chains, and was working in that world, high stress, lots of hours. And my wife's this is 2003 through 2004-ish. And my
Mhm.
wife, Erin, is seeing, the mortgage industry boom and the salespeople in the industry doing very well for themselves. And she says, hey, this is really, I think, an opportunity for you to look at a possible career change if it's something you're interested in. So we talked it through and decided to pull the trigger and make a pretty big career change. So thank you to Erin for supporting me in
Ugh,
in
Erin,
a
we
big
love
change.
you.
Yes. So it was kind of a little bit of a step back because I really enjoy to learn things from the ground up. So I ended up taking a CSR position at a wholesale company. So we were a company that our clients were mortgage brokers and account executives were the salespeople for a wholesale mortgage company. And I
Mhm.
was their inside salesperson. I was their inside customer service rep. It gave me the opportunity of like touching and feeling and seeing all of the things that are moving around within the business. I couldn't confidently go out and be a salesperson unless I had some foundational understanding of what was going on in the industry. So I came in and I did that for about a year. And then we had an opportunity to move to another company. And I was, basically said, I kind of had a deal with the branch manager. I said, if I stand up the team of customer service reps for our new branch and our new company, could I move out to be an account executive, get my own territory, my own book of business? And so he gave me the handshake deal. He was a great mentor of mine. Thank you, Peter Schwartz. Shout out to Peter
Oh,
Schwartz.
Peter,
Yeah.
blast
So
from the past.
um, got my own first 100% commission territory as an account executive for a great wholesale lender in late mid 2005 going into 2006, and we all know what happened right after that. Boom, the great financial crisis happens. And so it was really tough times. Probably 60 to 80% of my book of business of brokers closed up shop. It was an interesting time where we were seeing mortgage brokers get rolled up into what was called net branches at that time. And so they were actually becoming or kind of coming in and becoming assimilated into independent mortgage banks. We're bringing these brokers on board and giving them the ability of kind of having a DBA and running under their larger organization. And that gave a lot of those guys the opportunity to survive through the financial crisis at that time. So it taught me a lot. It was tough financially. Again, thank you to my wife for continuing to support me because the easy decision would have been to bail right back to hospitality management and start trying to do that. But I really felt like I had made a commitment to make this career change and stuck through it. So because of really great people around me, really great mentors, really great leaders, I was able to learn a lot. I was able to hone a lot of skills. But at one point, I really realized that I had only done wholesale lending. And so all of my customers were mortgage brokers, and I hadn't really worked with borrowers. I was working with mortgage brokers who were servicing borrowers, and I was helping them structure deals, and I understood borrowers, but I'd never actually had a borrower as a client. So again, me just trying to kind of continue to expand my resume, so to speak, and kind of be fully skilled. I figured this is a good opportunity for me to look at an opportunity in retail lending. And so at the time, it was a great opportunity. I followed Peter to a bank, and we actually worked at a bank together. We had a team of um, self-serviced retail loan officers that were sitting in branches, and I got to work very closely with a lot of them and actually handled all of the purchase leads that were incoming for the bank. So I got to work with borrowers. I got to build a great network and portfolio of relationships with retail borrowers, and I got to understand the retail borrower experience. Now I really understood the stress that I would hear in my mortgage broker's voice when they were talking about needing to close on time and all of that. Clearly, I understood it, but really feeling the emotion of working directly with the borrowers was something I really enjoyed. I think I'm really glad that I took that kind of little fork in my career. That said, through the whole experience, this whole journey, every time when I'd be in the corporate office, I always gravitated toward the capital markets teams. I always wanted to go sit in the head of capital markets office. I wanted to look at the charts and the graphs and all of the numbers, and I just was really always really fascinated by the whole secondary market and how that interacted with the mortgage company. And every time I thought I kind of had some of it figured out, I realized it was like just the tip of the iceberg, and there's just so much more. So
Yeah.
again, shout out to Aaron, but about God, I think it was 2014. I made the change and got out of origination and took an opportunity with a company as a part of their national sales team, or sorry, the national operations team. And so I came in to handle product development and investor relations, and I managed all of the guidelines, and I kind of helped launch new products. And I got to work very closely with the capital markets team and the national operations team. And it was just another layer of, hey, let me step back again, learn some more so that I can kind of take that next step forward. So that was a really big pivotal point for my career. I'm so glad I did it. I was kind of nervous at the time because it was a pretty big pay cut for us to be able to do. But again, two steps backwards to take five steps forward.
Right.
And from that point forward, I continued to kind of progress and move my way through national operations, product development, investor relations, capital markets, and then eventually kind of took another slight career change and career pivot. Just recently, almost September will be a year, so we're 8 or 9 months into it now that I joined MAXEX to kind of look at kind of pivoting to a fintech within the mortgage industry. So
Yeah.
as you can see, the mortgage industry has led me in a lot of different directions and given me a lot of different opportunities to pivot where my career path took me. So I'm very grateful for it. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for anybody getting into the business. So I've been rambling long enough.
Well, no, I love it. And I think what's really important about your story, number one, is you chose a good partner, a very smart, beautiful, kind,
All of
very,
those things.
very smart partner in Aaron. A few questions. So, number one, how is it having both of you be in the mortgage industry though? Like I know for me and my husband, Sven, it's like we always talk about like getting him in, and we're both like, no, we like wouldn't survive. So I have to imagine it's a little bit stressful going through the cycle.
Yeah, so Aaron and I are great complements of each other. I'm very comfortable with risk and taking risk, and she is extremely risk adverse, and so we somehow meet in the middle in most places in life. I would venture to say that if in 2003, 2004, when she was first talking to me about getting into the mortgage industry, had she known at least kind of what the next 10 years might look like,
Yeah.
she probably wouldn't have done it. So it was definitely hard. We were at the same company once. We always said, if nothing else, we know we're both in the mortgage industry, but we're not going to be at the same company anymore. That's too many eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Um, Knock on wood, we've both been really lucky to dodge any big, any big company closures and things like that over the years. But again, there have been plenty of ups and downs. We don't talk a lot of shop, but having someone in your life that is in the business, whether that's a mentor or a close friend or someone like that, that you can kind of just sometimes vent to and kind of understands what you mean when you're talking
Right.
about that underwriter. I love all my underwriters. My brother's an underwriter. Aaron was an underwriter, but you know what I mean. Like when you're having that frustration, somebody that understands the mechanics and gets it, it's always
Yeah.
good to have someone like that in your life. And Aaron and I have definitely been that for each other.
Yeah. Well, so interesting. And you guys have built a beautiful life. And that's, the thing is that it is, people think, oh, I'm going to be a loan officer. But again, tip of the iceberg, because once you get in and you get your license and you understand, there's like this door that opens. There are so many opportunities in the mortgage industry. I think everybody should be an LOA, be a loan officer, learn it, understand it from that borrower perspective, go through those hard knocks. And then, maybe you're passionate about the secondary. Maybe you're passionate about training. Maybe you're passionate about these other things. You're great at underwriting, or there's just so many things that people can do. And that was,
Yeah.
really one of the reasons I wanted to have you, is because, you know, it's very diverse. So I love that you highlighted that.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize the understanding the mechanics behind, if you're a loan officer, you've kind of got your computer, you've kind of got your screen, you've got your LOS, you've got your pricing engines, right? Like that's kind of where you go and you often stop. Understand what happens behind that. Understand what happens in underwriting. Understand what happens in closing. Understand what happens when the lock is locked. It sheds so much more light on what the experience is for everyone involved, and it helps you better understand when you run into a challenge or somebody says you can't do something. You now know why because you kind of have seen it. So if anybody's close enough to your operation centers, go sit in with your closers. Go sit in with a doc drawer for a day and just watch how hard those teams work to
Right.
just grind through many, many, many loans all day long with all of the rushes and all of the emotions that are behind all of those files. It's eye-opening. So,
Yeah.
and it will make you really appreciate what's there. But it also might turn you on to, hey, I really like underwriting. I really could see myself doing this, or I could see myself
Yeah.
getting into capital markets or things like that. So,
Yeah. It can
I
open
think
it
that
can
that's a
open
big,
doors.
yeah.
The other thing too that you said, was understanding the process, right? And one thing we do at Learn to Lend is we give a foundation, because I know when you started and I started, there wasn't anything out there. It was, here's your computer, go, but you were in an office, so you could at least overhear things, you could reach out to people. But even now that isn't really, an option. If you're close to an operation center, I definitely, encourage you to go in. But given your experience, what would you say at this point if somebody came up to you and said, hey, Josh, I'm going to be a loan officer? What would you tell them?
So, I would support him 100%. Getting into the mortgage industry, and for me, it was through origination as well, brought me, my family, opportunities that I couldn't have had in any other place. So I'm extremely grateful, and I think that it's a great opportunity for people. That said, that the barrier of entry to kind of come into the business isn't really that high. if you can kind of come in and get yourself certified, you can kind of come in and start your journey there. What you really have to be prepared for is working very hard, being very regimented, staying to a process, working with a mentor, all of the steps that kind of those success leaves clues pieces that
Yeah.
oftentimes a lot of people won't follow. And if you can do more than anyone else is, you'll be extremely successful and it will bring a lot to you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, that's positive. I feel like some people would say, run. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about cap markets and secondary because that is still even confusing to me. And I've been through the future leaders. I've worked closely with people. So I feel like for a newbie, um, if there was kind of like a base level that you could kind of talk to us a little bit about what is secondary, how does it work, and why as a loan officer in general do I need to know about it?
So I'm gonna say it from the perspective of independent mortgage banking being kind of our structure of what we're talking about. And so for anybody who doesn't that name isn't familiar, that's basically not a depository, not a bank, and not a portfolio type of lender. So an independent mortgage bank originates loans and sells loans. They don't retain the entire unpaid principal balance of those mortgages within a portfolio or an investment at that company. So it's critical that they originate, close, fund, and sell those loans. They're funding those loans on what's called a warehouse line. And the warehouse line is, think of it kind of almost like a HELOC, a revolving line of credit, a credit card for the company. They can, if they've got $100,000 loan, typically they can fund $98,000 of it on the warehouse line, hold it for about 30 days while they get the notes and all the closing docs and get somebody to purchase that loan, and then they get that money back, they pay off the warehouse line, and they just do that over and over again, all day, every day, all year. And so where the secondary elements of this come into play is in two phases. One, the ability to get gain on sale on all of those mortgages. So somebody in the capital markets secondary team needs to be able to evaluate all of those closed loans, determine all the criteria within those loans, whether it's their program type, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, non-QM, things of that nature, and then be able to sell those loans at a gain on sale that supports the commission to the loan officer and the expenses at the company. So that's kind of one
Yeah.
half of it. The other half is hedging. So from a hedging standpoint, that's the only way that a mortgage company can take a lock and promise a borrower that they're going to be able to honor that lock. So what you're being able to do is it's in essence, it's insurance that you're putting in place that when you go to sell that loan, the net of your hedge position and the sale price of that loan end up being a predetermined gain on sale, so that again, that gets us back to being able to pay the commissions of the loan officers and all the expenses. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of nuances behind the scenes in both of those categories, but I think those are the two most critical things. And understanding that as a loan officer, I think is pretty critical, because knowing if you're working for an independent mortgage bank, like they're not the investor, they're not making that credit decision. They're only basically structuring everything in a place that they can bring a product, that closed mortgage, to a secondary market that purchases those closed mortgages. All creates a real structured environment that loan has to go through the entire process, and that's everything that you teach, Bobby. So I think that's really critical, because that's the front end. If all of that front end stuff happens, it gets to the point where they're selling the loan, and everything should function well at that point.
Okay. That was a perfect explanation. Now, my next question is how is it different on the broker side? Is it different on the broker side?
The origination portion of it is, but not the
Well, just
secondary market portion of it.
okay. So the secondary marketing part of it is different. How is it different?
The secondary market portion of it is actually pretty similar. So instead, it's still a mortgage that's coming in.
Hmm.
the instead of paying a commission to a loan officer, now you're paying a commission to an AE and a mortgage broker if it's comped that way, or it
Hmm.
might just be comped where it's lender paid, I'm sorry, borrower paid comp, and that loan is being the compensation to the broker is being paid for by the borrower. But in the end, the wholesale investor that
Hmm.
is ultimately funding that loan is doing the exact same thing. They're funding that loan. They are going to turn around and sell that loan over a short period of time, be reimbursed for that loan, pay off the debt that they had to fund that loan, and do it all over again.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we need to have someone on where we kind of talk about the differences between bank and broker, but that main piece on the back end, the cap markets, the secondary piece, you don't have to be an expert, but really understanding that core foundation of that is definitely going to be part of your journey as a new loan officer. And you need to ask those questions, right? To be able to do that and watching the market and reading those things. So definitely something to add to the list of things to understand and definitely ask questions.
Yeah, I think it was real eye-opening for me when I understood that the companies I was working for, like this mortgage, they weren't just closing this mortgage and throwing it over here in this big investment pile of mortgages that they had over the years. When you understand they're not that if that was the case, they could make a lot of those credit decisions any way that they wanted to because it's their asset that they're going to be investing into. When
Right.
you're working within this world where you have to ultimately sell those loans in the secondary market, it means that they really have to do kind of be structured ultimately to ensure that they have an end buyer at the end of that.
Right. It's a whole business on the back end, but that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, and I can make
Yeah,
it. We could go down all kinds of rabbit holes
I
on
know.
top of all of that.
I know. Well, we'll save it. We'll do something in the future.
V two.
Um, so let's get into a little and talk about MaxEX, which is the company that you are currently at. And it's kind of what you have become really passionate about over the last few years is, fintech and, technology. And people may have heard of MaxEX and maybe, you've heard they're an investor and they buy loans and they, do this and that. But they're such an interesting company. And so I want you to talk a little bit about them. From my understanding, MaxEX is a mortgage asset exchange. It's a financial technology company that created a digital marketplace where mortgage companies can sell loans to institutional investors through a centralized exchange. It's a very AI future tech. So, can you tell us a little bit about MaxEX and how that works?
For sure. So, really, what attracted me to MaxEx when I started kind of looking at what the next phase of my career looked like was who's disrupting the mortgage industry? Who's coming in and actually doing something different? We continue to see, you know, mergers and acquisitions happening, companies kind of rolling up in other companies. Like that's one thing that's happening. But outside of that, who's really driving change in our industry? We talk so much about the cost of what it costs to originate a mortgage. And I don't just mean the commissions or things of that nature. I mean like all of the compliance and all of the underwriting and
Yeah.
all of the insurance. Like it is really expensive
What
to
is it
underwrite
at
a
these
mortgage.
days? Last time I checked, it was like 7 or 8, and now it's like 13.
Yeah,
And I mean,
it,
probably
it,
gone up.
it's insane. And
It
a
is
lot of
insane.
it is just the fact that as an industry, we haven't evolved as quickly from a technology standpoint as a lot of the rest of the world has around us. There's still very analog pieces between title and appraisal and credit and secondary markets and all of this. And so I started to kind of look at what's next, where I want to make sure I'm moving forward and I'm going to be in a place that as things evolve, I'm evolving with it. And so MaxX has always been something I was really intrigued by. As I kind of followed them over the years and had an opportunity to join them, and it's been amazing. So you nailed it with your was that with Wikipedia? Like what was
No, I'm
that?
sure it
Was
was
that
either
chat?
Google or my chat.
Okay.
Yes, the
All right. All
assistant.
right.
because I
I love
lovingly
it. No,
refer to it.
it nailed it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we are mistaken as a mortgage investor, and really what we have designed is a one of a kind exchange where sellers, like these IMBs we just talked about, who need people to purchase their mortgages so they can pay off their warehouse banks and fund more mortgages. We bring very large institutional buyers. So any of the gigantic names you know from Wall Street who buy mortgages, securitize them, and make them an asset within the conglomerate of mortgage-backed securities, all of those major buyers and more are available through MAXEX. And a lot of these are institutional buyers that a lot of our sellers wouldn't necessarily have direct access to directly because of their size. So one, we can fill a need for mortgage lenders that are looking for additional liquidity and additional access into these markets. We also create by creating this service where we've got as many as 32 different buyers that buy through our exchange. We now create one set of counterparty, one set of contact at credit, one set of contact for your escalations and exceptions, one lock desk, but for this very large group of buyers. And so that creates a lot of efficiencies. And to me, when I was going back to the cost of originating mortgages, is there's a lot of inefficiencies. There's a lot of things
Right.
that are like the pure opposite of being efficient, and that makes no sense why we still do them that way, but we
We've
do.
always done it this way. Don't you
Right,
love that?
yes, yes. Question that. And so what I'm just really passionate about with MaxEx is they're trying to find ways just to attack that problem right there. I'm also a huge blockchain digital geek, and so one of the very long-term pictures that MaxEx has is the ability to truly digitize everything that happens on mortgages, create a blockchain ledger where the mortgages are flowing from point A to point B, extremely efficiency, extreme smooth ease of access for both buyers, sellers, and there's a lot of additional um, gain on sale that can be resulted from that. So our clients, our sellers can then obviously pass that through to their loan officers and their borrowers and better pricing and things of that nature. So
Well, my question is, so at my independent mortgage bank, when we price things out, MaxX comes up. So you is that part of it,
yep.
or is
So
that
what you'll see is now a lot of our clients do things differently. So in your case, you're probably seeing MaxX buyer number one, MaxX buyer number two, MaxX buyer number three. And those
yeah,
buyers represent these very large institutional buyers that we have as our partners. So that is a specific rate sheet directly from that buyer into Optimal Blue, if that's your pricing engine, and then showing straight pricing straight through to the originators. Some of our buyers are using us for bulk transactions where we're part of their best X model. Some of our sellers are white labeling some of those, and it might come through as the gold, silver, platinum program. So our sellers have
yeah,
a lot of different ways to be able to do that. But if you're seeing MaxX come through in your product and pricing engine, you're
yeah.
seeing a buyer number attached to that, and that's exactly what you're seeing. That connects straight through to a rate sheet from that buyer every single day.
Very cool. Well, and they are really focused on non-agency loans, right? So jumbos, non-QM, investor DSCR, second homes. Again, usually, are new to the industry loan officers, these may be scary products. But the last 3 to 5 years, it seems like this is all that's out there is these, more difficult loans. And so, this next generation of loan officers, this is going to be their bread and butter as opposed to, the DPAs or the conventionals, that used to be. Can you talk a little bit about those types of loans and I mean, kind of just demystify why they would be scary versus not scary for a new person?
For sure. So to your first point, it's a major part of the industry right now. It's like 30% of the industry. If you're not doing non-agency, non-QM, DSCR products specifically, you're leaving loans on the table. It is an entirely different referral base. So a lot of the originators that work with those and specify kind of those as niche products for themselves, they have an entirely different referral group of people that are sending them borrowers. And sometimes that's far less competitive than the top 10 real estate agents in any given market who have 20, loan officers calling them every single day. So
Right.
there's a lot of opportunity in that space. The other thing is that they're not that much harder. In fact, in some cases, they're a lot easier. I'll start with DSCR. DSCR in and of itself is a product that is specified for investors. So it is a product designed to support the professional or semi-professional real estate investor, somebody who has so many properties that doing a Fannie Mae non-owner occupied transaction and providing all of the tax returns and all of the leases and everything that would just be mind numbing for them, and they just won't do it. They'd rather just
Right.
not even buy the next, investment property because they just
Yeah.
don't want to go through the headache of that. The
Right.
DSCR loan, what it does is called debt service credit ratio. And it's just about that property and its ability to cash flow. That's all that the underwriter is going to look at. They're going to look at the collateral. They're going to look at the proposed rents, whether that's a lease agreement or 1007 for the marketplace, and they're going to make sure that it cash flows. That is represented in the form of a ratio. So one, like if you have a DSCR ratio of one, that means your expenses on that property, PITIA, are just using an easy number, $1,000 a month, and your rent is $1,000 a month. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. There are some investors and buyers that won't go below one. There are some that will go below one. That will actually allow you to run at a deficit on a property. In those cases, LTV comes down a little bit, additional reserves kind of come in, things of that nature. But very simple loan for the real estate investor. The other part of this is there's a huge market of the buy, rehab, rent, refi, repeat borrower, the BRRR. The refi piece of that is that oftentimes they will buy a property in a more, I don't want to call it hard money, but a product that is designed for buying a property and rehabbing it. But they're very short-term loans, 12,
Right.
18 months. They
Yeah.
ultimately need to be refied into a DSCR loan. Simple, low paperwork. And while, a lot of people say, oh, but I've looked at those rates and the rates are a little bit higher, these borrowers aren't so concerned about rate, they're concerned about cash flow. And oftentimes, once they've gone through the process of rehabbing the property and where the rents are at in those areas, they're cash flowing no problem. And so they become a
Yeah.
far less rate sensitive borrower. So whole different borrower class, a little bit easier of a mortgage. So the DSCR loans are big and they're a big part of anybody who's really dedicating the time to learn that, find that new referral base and target that is becoming very successful. The other is the non-QM, and that's a very large umbrella that a lot of different
Yeah.
product variations kind of sit underneath. But some of the
Yeah.
biggest are like the alt income docs, right? So those are your bank statement loans, your P&L loans, your 1 year W-2 loans, things of that nature. And again, we think that these are a little bit harder, but they're easier than what you're going to get on a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA type loan, because oftentimes you're going to be trying so hard to figure out a way to get that to qualify in those more stringent guidelines. These are going to give you opportunities to be able to qualify the borrower in a much different way. And it was a couple years ago, I was talking with some originators about it, and they framed it really well for me that the industry has shifted. There was a period of time where these were just bailout loans. I don't Bailout's probably not the wrong term to use, but they were save a deal loans. That's a better way to do it.
Save a deal. Got it.
It got declined as a Fannie Mae, so hey, don't forget to double check it against a non-QM product and see if you can save that deal. These are actually serving underserved borrowers. These are high net worth borrowers. These are gig borrowers. These are borrowers with different types of income, high quality, great credit scores, great borrowers. In the old days, we would say, guys, they're just such a great borrower. It just makes sense. Why can't we make this deal work, right?
Right.
these products are designed for that underserved market of borrowers, and I just think it's a great opportunity, and I encourage anyone new to the industry, like this is the time. Dive into it now before you
Yeah.
get wrapped up in anything else. Dive in, know these products, and start your business with the foundation of alternative products like DSCR and bank statements and non-QM and things of that nature.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like for a long time I always thought, oh, VA loans are hard. VA loans are hard, but you do one and then you're like, oh, I know how to do it. It may seem scary at first just because you've never done it. And if you've never done a loan in general, they're all going to seem hard. So I love that advice about diving in and starting here because this is really where it is. I feel like everybody's income, not everybody, but like you said, 40% of people have multiple jobs or they change jobs or they're doing all the things. So I think that's great advice. I did kind of want to talk a little bit about mortgage technology. So, we kind of touched on that. And just today, I was on a call and we were talking about MISMO. Have you heard of MISMO?
Yep.
And I kind of just, I always pick your brain on any mortgage stuff, but I was curious to see is that a company, they're not necessarily in competition with you guys. They're doing their own thing. They don't buy or sell loans. They're just trying to get the industry on one standard
Yeah.
for, a multiple thing. Do you know anything about that or?
Yeah, so definitely not an area of expertise for me. I probably know enough to be dangerous, but it's really for them. I think their target again, kind of similar to where MAXEX is right. Let's build a technology that the entire industry, a platform the entire industry can get on, and it will make everybody more efficient. Even if that brings more competition in that space, that's great. Like we
Yeah,
want to all continue to grow, and our steel will sharpen steel together.
yeah,
I think they've got a great model where they're looking at how to transfer data through that process,
right.
and the application data and all of that. So like that's really I think where what attracted me to MaxX was I was looking for those market disruptors. Like these guys are doing the same thing. They're coming in and they're pushing the status quo, testing the status quo, and trying to continue to grow. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that in coming years.
What are you really excited about in the technology space? Like, where do you see kind of where we are in 5, 10 years?
So I said it a little bit ago, but it probably is just the blockchain homer in me. But I really think blockchain is an absolutely incredible technology where we will be able to tokenize
Well, what is
any.
blockchain? Don't be
So
disappointed in me. I have no idea even what it is.
So blockchain is really a immutable ledger. So that means that once something is on the ledger, it's always on the ledger. It's always visible. There's always a traceable history to it, and no one can alter that. Like it lives there. And so I think what you do then is you tokenize a real world asset by giving it a place on this ledger, and it can be transferred from person A to person B to person C, and it becomes an asset, a digital asset within that ecosystem. And the speed at which data moves within that blockchain ecosystem is incredibly fast.
Oh,
It
I
can
bet.
also be incredibly secure. So personal data, borrower data, those types of things can be incredibly encrypted and safe within those ecosystems. And so the ability for us to align all of these smaller industries in this big industry we call the mortgage industry, right? You've got title and you've got appraisal and you've got capital markets, like all of these things, everybody lives in their own ecosystem.
Bubble. Yeah,
Yeah.
ecosystem.
And then you compound it with compliance and regulations, right? Every state has its own regulations about certain things. You got federal laws and state laws, right? So there's going to come a time where all of that has to align in a way that we can create one solid platform for all of this to live within. And again,
Yeah,
I happen to believe the blockchain is going to be a big part of that.
yeah.
And it will create immense amounts of efficiencies within the industry.
What do you think the timeline is on something like that? Are we seeing a little bit of it now? Is there a company that's doing it or is it still? type?
I think what you're going to see there's some pretty big regulatory acts in Washington right now being voted on and signed on. A lot of that's going to come into it's starting with how a lot of how a lot of this crypto gets traded and how it gets managed and what's classified as a commodity and security and things of that nature. When a
Yeah,
lot of that starts to kind of get itself figured out, then people will be willing to invest, utilize, and start building on top of it. So I think
yeah,
things move pretty quickly after that. It's the state slash federal law regulatory changes that I think slow everything up.
yeah,
When we start having to look at how title, how title is managed in this state versus that state, how foreclosures are managed in this state versus that state, and how we can manage these separately within these single ecosystems. When we can
yeah,
figure that piece out, I think things move pretty quick. But I think we're probably 5 years ish before we start to really see some momentum in that
yeah.
space.
Interesting. You're so smart. I always learn so much from you. Um, I wanted to ask you, what, for new to the industry folks, what are like one or two podcasts or people they could follow, or people that are like, really smart that we could follow and check in with and stay up? Besides you, of course. Everybody follow Josh. I don't think he does social media, but
I am
who do you follow?
I am so
Where do you
bad.
get your news?
All right, so the first person I would say is Bobby Hansen. If you are not already following her, you need to be all over that. So I think one, I would say have mentors, right? You need people that you look up to, people that care enough about you to give you solid advice, tell you when you're right, tell you when you're wrong, and help kind of guide you along the way. In that same vein, I think it's important to surround yourself with people who have the same values as you and have potentially reached goals that you want to reach yourself. When you're in that ecosystem, and I'm not saying build yourself an echo bubble that you kind of get that feedback from, but when you're in that world, you're going to then be exposed to a lot of success leaves clues. What podcasts did they listen to? What people did they follow? What books did they read? So I think a lot of that, as you build that network, kind of comes downstream from that. The other thing,
Yeah.
as I would say, is always be looking outside of whatever industry you're in. So, right, we're talking about mortgage now, but when you're looking at people that you want to follow, successful people, don't just look at mortgage. Don't just look at successful mortgage people. Look outside of mortgage. Look at other business people or other people just creating great social impacts within communities and find ways that you can kind of build off of some of those successes and bring little by little into your world.
Mm. I could talk to you for hours and hours, but we're gonna end it there. Josh, it was so lovely to have you on the show, and we will definitely team up and get something together. I want to just plug into your brain and know even one fourth of what is in there. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you for having
And
me.
if you are not already following the show, please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.